The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Welcome to another edition of the Hoop Ball Sacramento podcast. I'm your host, Christian Villere. You can find me on Twitter at MyBuddyChris. For all of Hoop Ball Sacramento Kings coverage on Twitter, it's at Hoop Ball Kings. And for all of your NBA news, NBA fantasy news, and Sacramento Kings coverage, period, it's hoop-ball.com. If you're playing fantasy basketball, you need to get the season pass now. It gets you access to all of the premium content put out by Hoop Ball. And if you deposit $10 to DraftKings as a new user, you get all of the premium content. You get the season pass for free from Hoop Ball. Quite the deal, if I may say so myself. On the podcast today, we have Sacramento Kings beat blogger for Hoop Ball, Mr. John Schifferle. He and I discuss in great detail the Kings game on Monday against the San Antonio Spurs in Sacramento. We hit on some individual performances from the different guys and what we thought of the team overall. With that, let's get into this episode of the Hoop Ball Sacramento Kings podcast. He is back with us on the program. I'm very surprised, very happy to have him on here. Sacramento Kings beat blogger for Hoop Ball, Mr. John Schifferle. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. I guess, so you're just surprised because it's been a while?
Yes, it's been an insanely long time since we've talked. It's been all of possibly 46, maybe 47 hours since you and I chatted.
Yeah, we're close to the 2-day mark.
That's right.
It's up there.
That's a long time for me not to talk to you, it seems like.
It is?
No, it's really not. The Kings played last evening, Monday night, against the San Antonio Spurs, closing out a 4-game homestand at the Golden One Center. We are taping this on a Tuesday night. From the little jibber-jabber you and I had before we hopped on the podcast here, I gather you had a much different take of that game overall and how the Kings played than I did. State your case, sir.
Well, I'm going to have to guess there that you didn't feel like they played well. And I will say, I think they probably could have blown out the Spurs if they had been playing well, because I don't think the Spurs had a good game. So maybe you felt differently, and I was fine. I mean, it's always great to beat the Spurs, but I think I thought it was fine. It was like a B for me.
I would have given it C+, B-, which makes me more encouraged with how the Kings are playing if they can beat the Spurs playing at that level. The tip-off for me thinking that you thought something different was implying the Kings would have gotten blown out if Bogdanovic had not played. And here's where I take umbrage with that, sir. His plus-minus was a -7. So the Kings would have been 7 points better off in that ball game had he not played.
Well, what I felt like is there some time bench was about to give the game away, and he kind of came in and saved it. And so I think a lot of that was just the fact that he played with the bench, who is always bad. So I don't know. I felt like he really saved the bench unit.
No, he did save the bench unit. I didn't think they played as well as you thought. I still do think there were stretches there where they really did play their game. They came out, they played it well at the beginning. They got into a little bit of a lull there towards the latter part of the second quarter when the first unit came back in. It's almost the same old that we pound our fist on the table with this team about. Sometimes they come back in with that starting unit or just really any unit, and they seem to forget what they want to do on the offensive end. It happened a little bit there. But that second unit, in the second half, when they came back in, things were humming. They had a continuity to them, a chemistry to them, a chutzpah to them. They put it all together, and they were able to keep up with the Spurs in that second half. And when they handed it back to the first string there, first team with De'Aaron Fox, things were going, things were happening. That was good to see. I graded down simply because they took some lulls there in the game where they were not playing as well as they could have. The Spurs could have easily taken advantage. The Spurs did not shoot well last night. Let me check the box score here, see what they shot.
Yeah, they were
Spurs,
around 43%.
They were at 43%, 32% from the three-point line. They shoot a little bit better. The Kings extend those lulls maybe a little bit more. We're looking at a different result to that ball game, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's a tight game. And I guess the way that the grade comes down at a B for me is that you can't do worse than a C if you win, I would say. Unless you're playing just an absolutely awful team and you're like, the Warriors or something. Then I think you can get worse than a C on a win. But when you're the Kings, if you win, you get a C at the least.
Go ahead.
I just think I agree with you. They played a lot slower than I would have liked. And I think the Spurs did dictate the pace a little bit more than they should have been able to. But at the same time, I would say that was exactly the type of game that the Spurs win, where they just hang around, and then they execute more than you do, in the second half. And that comes down to be the end of it. So I felt like the Kings did a really great job of not falling into that trap and just kind of staying ahead of the Spurs the whole game. And in a way that I just don't think most teams in the NBA do on a consistent basis. So I give them at least a B for it, just because it's so hard to beat a team like that. But yeah, there were definitely, I was disappointed in the pace, and I was disappointed in it. As great as his game was, I just want to see a lot more from Fox. So yeah. I was a little disappointed in him, but I mean, it's hard to be disappointed with anyone that scores 19 on 9 shots,
Points in the paint, Kings owned it by 10. Fast break points, Kings were plus 11, 20-9. Points off turnovers, about even. Yeah, you'd like to see him establish things a little bit more, and I think we'll hopefully see more of that as we get down the line here and things get a little bit closer, and he'll start to realize that when the team needs a basket, he's got to go to work and get that done. I thought King. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, did you see at the end of the game when he took that step back? I think against Bertans. Is that how you say his name?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So he hit just an unbelievable step back against him at the end of the game, and was clearly like, the game was over. The Spurs weren't coming back, and he was just taking it because they needed to take a shot or else it'd be a turnover. And I wanted to see so many more shots like that throughout the game. Like when he's just almost unguardable on some of those step backs with how far he gets back and how easily he shoots them. It feels like he can take over a game if he wants to. And you even saw in the second quarter that he kind of did take over the game for a 3-minute stretch there. And then he just kind of stopped shooting. It's not like he gets cold.
The question is, can he keep up that percentage increasing the attempts? I don't know.
If he can. Does he need to? He doesn't need to shoot anywhere near 50% and 44% from 3. I mean, if he ups the attempts by half and shoots 45% and 34% from 3, he's probably getting to the line a lot more. I mean, to me, it opens up a lot of his game, and I would love to see. He has to be at 15 in my opinion.
15 what?
Shots.
Oh, 15 shots a game? What was he at last night?
9.
He took 9 shots?
Yeah.
Wow, you're right. 19,
he just can't take 9 shots.
19 points on 9 shots. But I don't know. I like the balanced attack. 14 from Buddy, 13 from Willie, 11 from Nemanja. Bogdan's got 22 off the bench, and he shot a lot more. He shot 17 times. I like the balanced attack.
Too. Yeah.
What am I?
would...
Oh, oops. Sorry. Pardon me. Bit of an interruption from the ESPN site that I'm on for the box score. Apologize for that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It was Cauley-Stein's ridiculous. Oh, there it goes again. What the heck is going on?
Oh.
Jeez and Pete's.
Oh, the alley-oop?
Yeah, the alley-oop at the end of I guess. All right. I guess I'm going to have to leave this page. That's unfortunate. Anyhow.
That alley-oop was close to being very embarrassing. I'm shocked he finished that.
I thought he was just going to lay it up. I thought there were individual performances last night that stuck out to me more so than the team's play. Frank Mason, he played extraordinarily well, played extremely hard, pushed the pace, arguably more so than De'Aaron Fox. Looked for his shot appropriately, got other people involved. Really liked what he was doing last night. Another person, of course, Bogdanovic. I liked how aggressive he was. He was aggressive without taking too many shots, taking up too much of the oxygen on offense, and still getting other guys involved. Harry Giles, there was a play there in the second quarter I made note of in my phone because I like to do that sometimes, so I have some stuff to talk about on the podcast. There was a play there where he was trying to get to LaMarcus. It was 6:45 left in the second quarter. If anybody has the game recorded still and wants to go back and take a look at this. It was maybe a little bit before that, so 6:47 left in the second quarter. He was trying to get to Aldridge, and he just wasn't moving that fast. I'm hopeful that it has to do with his wind, with his conditioning, as opposed to something wrong with him medically. Because Marvin Bagley Jr. was right behind, and you can tell, because Harry Giles is moving at one speed, and Marvin Bagley is moving at a 500,000 mile per hour speed right behind him, trying to get to Aldridge himself.
Yeah, he did look a little winded at times last night, so I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I do know I felt like there were times where it looked like he was pretty tired. Which makes sense. He
played Stockton the day before, right?
Yeah, and then he came in a little bit for the Kings game on Sunday. I'm sure he's had practices in between all these, so I wouldn't be shocked to see that he's a little winded playing, however many minutes he did. But back to your point about Frank Mason, have you noticed he's really good with the clock? Like, it seems like anytime there's a 2-for-1 and he's in the game, the Kings always go for it.
I had not noticed that at all. Because De'Aaron Fox does not do it. I'm actually a fan of not trying to go for the 2-for-1. I rarely see when teams go for a 2-for-1 that they actually get both baskets. It seems to me like it never works out well for them.
Yeah, I think for me it depends a lot on the player, and what it seems like Frank Mason's able to do is take some sort of good step back or take some sort of semi-open three or something like that, where it's a good shot that he gets off, and so you will get another good shot at the end of the quarter, and it seems to work out for them. But either way, I think it's just he does seem to have a much more awareness than you would expect for a player that's in their second year, and I think that adds a lot as a backup point guard, because I would love to see De'Aaron Fox with a little bit of like a veteran backup point guard, and it seems like Frank Mason from a game management standpoint can be that to a certain extent for him. So I love to see what
he's showing,
and Yogi Ferrell's good too, but Mason's been great.
Mason is showing out. Like, he is playing extraordinarily hard. He's throwing himself in there on defense. He's getting his nose in there on the defensive boards, gang rebounding with everybody else. And it's showing, because I believe the Kings and the Spurs were even rebounding-wise last night. Much more handsy on the defensive end. I believe they had 12 steals to the San Antonio Spurs 5. All that stuff freaking matters. And in the clutch times when the Kings needed a defensive play, Mason was coming up with it. What's his name? Iman Shumpert. He knew exactly what the Spurs were going to do. He was playing the pick and roll very well. Or maybe it wasn't the pick and roll, but there was a couple of times when they ran a specific play and Iman Shumpert abandoned his man to get where he needed to be so that he could get the ball and get them out in transition.
Well, was the one specifically I can think of is where they doubled on Aldridge, and then Aldridge went to go make the pass, and Iman Shumpert read it immediately and went and picked it off. And it's stuff like that where you can just kind of see, like, all right, someone's wide open. Obviously, this guy's going to try and kick it over to him. I'm going to go jump that. and get us out on the break. So Shumpert does have a good veteran presence on the floor. I like him. He plays hard too.
Couple more statistics things here. Kings did not commit a foul in the second quarter.
Wow.
For all this hubbub with the Kings not getting the whistle, it was drastically different last night. And Spurs games in general with the Kings, they go exceedingly fast. My dad and I were walking out of the arena 2 hours after the game started, which is incredible. The Spurs had 4 more assists at halftime. They had 3 more offensive rebounds. Kings had POI. I don't know what that means. Kings had 12 fast break points POI. I'm not sure what that was for. Why I wrote that.
Yeah.
Beyond all of... Yeah, okay. Thanks, John. You're so helpful.
Yeah.
Beyond that, something that we do want to hit on. There was something happening in the building. There were Kings reporters, mainly Sean Cunningham and Mr. Jason Jones, tweeting about it. Rudy Gay was getting booed in the crowd. I would love to give the benefit of the doubt to the fact that there was a 49ers game going on last night, and there might have been some TVs in the suites and lofts on that game with bad stuff happening to the 49ers and people booing at that. But I'm going to go ahead and guess that that's probably not the case, and people were actually booing Rudy Gay when there is no good reason in any way to boo Rudy Gay. He was nothing but professional with the Sacramento Kings. He did all he could on the team. He even took a below-market deal, which I could not believe. As I was watching the press conference, I was consistently refreshing my page to make sure it was actually happening. As it was happening, he sat down with Vivek, with Mr. D'Alessandro, to announce that 3-year, $40 million deal that I could not believe. Played it out, super professional, never crapped on the fan base in any way. And yet, you've got Marco Bellinelli on that same court who did that on Twitter to Sportato, I believe it was. No one made mention of that. There was no booing for him. Could not believe it. Did it show up on television, John? And what did you make of it?
Yeah, I'll say I heard it a little bit in real time, where whenever he took free throws, you could hear a couple people booing. And I guess my defense of it would be, it sounded like it was just a few people. And so, you know, you have an arena full of thousands of people. A few of them will be, you know, maybe not the brightest, maybe not the most sober they've ever been, and they'll boo like that just because they remember Rudy Gay, I guess. But you're definitely right. I think I told you this story, but my cat is actually named after Rudy Gay. And so, I mean, I loved him. He was a great king. And, yeah, I mean, he did a great job while he was here. And I just can't think of a reason. There's nothing that even comes to mind that was questionable where I think, well, he was just a great king the whole time he was here.
He was a great king. He did what he could, and was even professional about it after he left. Clearly, the people who were booing are not the smart marks. They are not the fans who are in the know, listening to the pods, listening to this pod, listening to other pods, on Twitter, fully engaged.
We know they're not even here.
Exactly. It was a little bit of a blight on the Kings fans who attend the games. Just a tiny bit. Not a good look, in my opinion. But
I will also say, just from a strategic standpoint, when players with Rudy Gay's profile, which, you know, like him or not, think, you know, whatever you think of him, he's been on, like, real NBA commercials. Like, Rudy Gay is not some scrub from somewhere. Like, he was a big deal when he joined the Kings. And I get that he was struggling in Toronto, but whenever a player like that joins, and Rudy Gay played well, again, he was great for the city, so he deserves better when he comes back. But just when a player like that joins the Kings, you got to make sure that you treat them well, because it's rare for a free agent, and I get that he wasn't a normal free agent when he re-signed, but you want those players to feel like they're going to come here and they're going to have a good experience with it, and it's going to go well for them. And so I just don't think it's a good look to boo someone like Rudy Gay at all. Even if he did something a little bit questionable, just let it go. But again, he was a great King, so it's just not a good look for Kings fans if you want to attract free agents.
Hopefully stuff like this does not repeat in the future. Yep. That's why we bring it up to the table now, so we can raise our level of awareness as Kings fans. And if you happen to be sitting next to somebody who does that, maybe educate them just a tiny bit. Just a nice little nudge. Let them know.
Yeah.
Not the thing to do.
He's a good guy.
It's right. Let's get into some odds and ends here with this game. And stuff that extends beyond the game, because I was taking some notes down of some stuff that I liked.
Sure.
Willie Cauley-Stein gets announced last during the pregame introductions. I'm a huge fan of this for a couple reasons, I should say, not several. I only have 2 reasons why I like it.
Okay.
Number 1, it helps feed Willie's ego, and I feel like that's a thing that needs to be fed. And number 2, it leads me to believe that somebody came to De'Aaron Fox and said, "Look, De'Aaron, typically we introduce the best player last, and we would like to introduce you last, but maybe it would be a better idea to introduce Willie Cauley-Stein last." And their reasoning for this can be, they do it this way. They go 1 to 5. I noticed that it seems like in the past, they have introduced players for the visitors and the home team in the same way, in whatever combination they do it.
Sure.
For the visitors, they introduced the guards last, and for the Kings, they went 1 through 5, which is just interesting to me, because it seems like you typically introduce your best guy last. DeMarcus always got introduced last. Pretty sure Tyreek...
He was also the 5.
Oh, darn. I'm pretty sure that Tyreek also got introduced last as well, but I could be wrong about that.
Sure.
However, I like to think that De'Aaron Fox, being the leader of the team, whoever is the game operations person came to him, and De'Aaron, being the leader, was okay with going 1 through 5 to introduce when they're introducing players, to be introduced first as opposed to last.
All right. So, as someone who's been, all cards on the table to maybe 5 to 6 Kings games ever, this is not something I think about very often, and not something I was aware of until now. So I won't have the hottest take ever on it. But maybe the move is to go up to De'Aaron Fox and say, "Hey, we would announce you last, but you got to take more than 9 shots. Can't be 5th on the team in shots tonight, and maybe we announce you last."
Like you're scoring.
That's really the thing here.
You're scoring 19 points on 9 shots. Clearly, you need to shoot 20 times so you can score 40 points. That's just how this works.
Yeah, we don't need 19. We need 40. Come on. But I will say his ego needs to be fed. Willie's. You can tell whenever he does something big, he plays so much better afterwards.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm sure other players do that as well. But I think we're just noticing that solely because we are Sacramento Kings fans and we watch so many Kings games. I'm sure that happens with many, many other players throughout the league.
Yeah, I mean, he's the biggest player on the Kings, where when he gets a big block or something like that, I look at him and it's just like, all right, here we go. Like he's gonna take the next 3 shots for sure. He does feed off of playing well. It just feels like something. I notice it with him more than anyone else.
He's gonna take the next 3 shots. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, well,
Scott Freshour, the stadium MC for the games. Actually, he's not. I don't know if he's technically. He's the host, whatever you want to call him. Sure. I like the fact that he has changed at the top before the game starts. The teams are on the court, And instead of saying, let's show the blobbity blob what a loud arena sounds like, which is completely crapping on the other team's fan base, he has now changed that to, let's show the blobbity blob how loud we get in Sacramento, which is instead a compliment to how loud we get in Sacramento. I'm a very big fan of that because I don't think we need, I said this on the pod before, I don't think we need to be giving the other team even more of a reason to try and kick the Kings' asses. I just don't think that needs to be had. And I'm glad he's changed. Maybe somebody got in his ear. Maybe he just decided to do it on his own. Regardless, I'm glad the change has been made.
Yeah, so another, qualifier here. I've been to 5 or 6 Kings games ever.
You don't need to if you don't have nothing to say, you do not need to comment.
I do. I get what you're saying, and especially it's so much worse when you're not a great team. And I did kind of feel that when I went to the games in the past, where it's kind of like, come on, we're down by 20. Don't do that. But
no, but he never does that. I don't think he does that at the end of games. He's doing it at the beginning of games when they're about ready to jump off or jump all.
Oh, I always think of it as like a pre-fourth quarter thing.
No, he doesn't do it at the fourth quarter. He doesn't.
Everyone doesn't stand up and yell at the beginning of the fourth quarter?
No, let's make some noise. I never remembered hearing him say that at the beginning of the fourth quarter. It was always, let's make some noise. Let's get ready for the fourth quarter. Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
No kind of shot was taken at the other team's fan base.
That's fair.
When the Spurs make a line change, when they put in the bench unit, they run the exact same way. And that is how they win ball games. There is not much difference between when the team is run by their starting point guard, in which case last night I believe it was Derek White, and when Penny Mills comes into the ball game. It is the exact same ball club. They play the same way for 48 minutes. That is the gold standard in terms of discipline. When the Kings get to even 75, maybe 80% of that, they're going to be difficult to play against because, in my opinion, taking a look at what the Kings have and what the Spurs have, I would say it's comparable. And when it comes to shooting, the Kings have that far and away over the Spurs. And that's what happened last night. That was part of the reason why they were able to win. They made 12 of 23, and their effective field goal percentage was 10 points higher than the Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, the Spurs are not the deepest team this year. And the other team that does that is the Warriors. And a thing you really notice with both of those teams is their bench tends to just, if they're down, they eat through leads. And if they're up at all, they kind of put the game out. So it is something that makes a big difference. And the Kings don't quite have that yet. But something that I think kind of relates to this, and I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems like Dave Yeager gets along really well with the other coaches in the league. And generally speaking, if you ever hear about him, it does seem like he has a lot of respect from the other coaches and the other players. And I think that's honestly really big for the Kings. And I think it has a lot to do with what Greg Popovich said about the culture.
Agreed. However, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're winning. I think winning papers over just about everything.
That's the biggest thing, for sure. If they were 4-10 tonight, no one would have said anything, even if they were playing, good style. But I do think you kind of look at him, and what was the thing that? Okay, so Greg Popovich was complaining because I think the ball hit the official, and they needed. Oh no! They saw a wet spot on the court. And so
yeah, and he started complaining about it.
Yeah, and then Dave Yeager goes over and makes a joke to him, and they were clearly joking about it for a second. And it just seems like all of the really big coaches in the league like Dave Yeager. And it seems like the players really respect him, and I think that's huge for a team like the Kings. And I think it's a big part of why I think as much as the Kings are winning, and Greg Popovich could have said something about that, for him to say the culture's changing, if the Kings go on just a horrible run for the rest of the year and end up winning 25 games, which is honestly, Not nice to think about, but
it's always possible.
The Magic did it last year. It's not hard. And if that happens, Greg Popovich looks a little dumb for saying that. I mean, no one's going to pull it back, and it's not like going to affect his record or anything. But when you have a name like that, you don't want to put it on the line for nothing. So I think he honestly does believe that Dave Yeager has something, and he has changed something that matters. And I just don't think you say that if you don't respect the coach. So I think he's getting a lot of respect, and that's really going to go a long way for the Kings in free agency and trying to re-sign some of the players they have when that comes up. It seems like a big deal to me. And last night was the most I've ever noticed it.
If they were playing the same way and for whatever reason they just had crappy luck and started, like you say, 4-10, 3-11, I think he would still say that the culture's changed or something's changing. He would look a little more foolish, maybe to the outside person looking in who doesn't have any context. It would look foolish, so a lot of the national folks would think it was off-putting, but I still think he would say that because, like you say, I think he does have a lot of respect for Mr. Dave Yeager and also for Vlade and some of the players that the Kings have, Bogdanovic in particular.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he seems to really like Bogdan. If they ever want to trade Bogdan, I know exactly who they should call. I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to say it.
Okay. The second unit last night, and really, I think you said a little bit of it on the pod earlier, with Bogdanovic in that second unit, it hit its stride a little bit. It definitely hit its stride in the second half. That is insanely good to see. In my opinion, he's got to play with the second unit in order for them to stay afloat. He might be a little bit of a crutch for them, but I can see other guys generating some confidence off of the fact they have him on the court. The downside is, though, some of the guys are using him as a crutch, like Justin Jackson. Justin Jackson's like, all right, wait, hold on, but Bogdan's right next to me. Let's pass it to him. It's a much better idea than me trying to do something.
Yeah.
Bogdan, yeah.
I mean, to the same degree, you have a problem of Marvin Bagley saying, all right, let me post up.
Yeah.
So
it would be nice if we could transfer some of that blind confidence into Justin Jackson.
It would. But I kind of agree with you. I mean, on a purely just like basketball on a spreadsheet sense, I would love to see him play purely with the bench. But in a basketball in real life sense, you can't keep that guy on the bench. I mean, it's just not. How could you possibly look him straight in the face and say, all right, we're starting Justin Jackson tonight again after his minute restriction is lifted, or Iman Shumpert, or whoever it is, right? Like, he's got to start, but I do think either he comes out early or Buddy comes out early because that second unit really needs a scorer.
See, and that I don't know. If it seems to work, I don't know why you fix it with something else. Iman played 26 minutes last night. Buddy played 25 minutes. Bogdan played 24 minutes. He's going to figure out some way to balance that out. I think it's going to work out just fine. Yeah. It probably means a lot less time for Justin Jackson. However, Justin Jackson played in both halves, which is kind of odd considering Bogdan coming back. We expected that to vanquish all of Justin Jackson's minutes. Was that a little surprising to you?
It seems to me a little bit like Dave Yeager likes to use Justin Jackson as like a heat check guy because he's pretty much not scored at all in any game, or he's gone for like 15 to 20, right?
He's either made shots when they didn't matter or completely missed them when they did.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. And the only thing that surprised me is that Troy Williams didn't play last night. And he's played so well, and it seems like Dave Yeager likes him. So I just don't know why he wouldn't have even gotten a minute in that game.
He didn't play. In my opinion, he didn't play that well on Friday and Saturday.
That's fair, but did Justin Jackson?
Well, Justin Jackson is getting paid a lot more than Troy Williams. Also, I guess it doesn't matter because he's up with the team, but he can only play a certain amount of dates. But I guess last night would have counted as one of those dates. So that argument kind of gets taken out at the legs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a little bit in the camp of Justin Jackson needs to play a little bit, if only because they're so thin at small forward, and it would just be so great if he was just even okay. You know? I mean, he's got size.
I think he's a good player.
Yeah.
He just
Not
needs a little...
Kings.
No, I think he just needs a little confidence, and when he gets that confidence back, like, I don't know why they don't send him down to Stockton for a little bit. It doesn't matter what year you are in the league. If you need to go get your confidence back, go down there and take some shots, get some reps. Baseball players, regardless of whatever year they're in, they get sent back to the AAA and figure out what the heck is going on. Cliff Lee wasn't Cliff Lee until he went to the minor leagues and came back a new man. Same thing might be the case with Justin Jackson. If you need to do it, go do it. Don't be concerned about the fact that you're a second-year player and it looks bad. Do what you got to do for your career. I would like to see him maybe even ask to go down there, because at the moment, if he's going to stand around on offense and not look for his own shot, simply pass it to Bogdan while they're both in the game, or Buddy or somebody else, he's not playing up to the level the Kings need him to in order to be effective in any whatever 5-man unit he's in. He needs to have the confidence to take his own shot, to make his own move, to be some sort of a force on offense, in whatever magnitude that ends up being.
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing for me with Justin Jackson, I didn't like him in the draft, just generally speaking. And my biggest problem with him was that, like, the best thing everyone said about him is that he shoots floaters really well. And I just cannot stand players who take floaters. It just seems like he shot 45% on floaters, and that's just not a great percentage, especially when you consider the fact that you very rarely get fouled on them. So I just didn't really see it with him. But the fact is he doesn't get to the rim, and if he's not hitting his threes and he's not getting to the rim and he's not great defensively, what is he doing for you? You know what I mean? Like, he just needs to start hitting threes. That's it. It's that simple. He either hits them or he doesn't. This
is true. You speak the truth. What else? Is there some happy thing we can end on here? Because I don't want that to be the last thing that we talk about. The Kings beat the Spurs Monday night, and they've got 2 winnable games ahead of them. We could be sitting here on Sunday saying the Kings are 10-6 heading into Thanksgiving week. Did you expect that to be the case? I sure as heck didn't.
No, and I mean, I'll say this, that a win against the Spurs anywhere at any time is a big deal. That's just not a team that's easy to win against, and you do have to play well. So I don't even know, as far as giving them a B, that maybe was even unfair, honestly. They played well. Schifferle looks good. It seems like Dave Yeager's doing a good job. I mean, overall, it's hard to think. If you expected anything better than this, then I think you might just be, not very realistic. This is about as good as it could have been from just about everyone, and there's a lot of room for growth. So everything seems to be good.
The Kings are. I'm looking at the standings right now. They are a game away from 4th place in the Western Conference. Let's let that be where we end this podcast here. John Schifferle, you can find him on Twitter at John Schifferle. You can find me on Twitter at MyBuddyChris. For all of Hoopball Sacramento Kings coverage on Twitter, it's at HoopballKings. And for all of your NBA news, NBA fantasy news, and Sacramento Kings coverage, period, it's hoop-ball.com. The new and improved hoop-ball.com. There's now a team-specific page for every team in the league. Go there to get all of these podcasts, as well as all of Schifferle's awesome, amazing articles on the Sacramento Kings. Also, pick up the season pass right now. If you're playing fantasy basketball, you need to do that right away. Gets you access to all of the premium content on Hoopball. If you deposit $10 as a new user into DraftKings, you can get the season pass for free. That's a pretty good deal if you're playing fantasy basketball. You can find this show on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, YouTube, the Hoopball Radio app, and the iHeartRadio app, Both of those apps are available for download for free in the iTunes and Google Play stores. For John Schifferle, I'm Christian Villere. See you next time.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.